And as a temporary diversion to this diatribe, I'd be happy to yield to the gentleman from Indiana who might be able to flesh that story out just a little bit, so much time as he may consume.
Thanks. I'd like to address, I thank my colleague from Iowa for taking the lead tonight, and my colleague and friend from Ohio as well has been, both have been longtime pro-life leaders, and my colleague from Iowa and I have fought on numerous fronts in the various battles here. Today, before I speak on the abortion question, which is one thing I want to raise here, of course, but today in the Homeland Security markup on Transportation Security Administration, I offered an amendment that anybody released in the United States from Gitmo would go on the no-fly list. We thought that the debate was going to be, should this be a recorded vote? And the Democrats would propose not having a recorded vote. But it caused such panic that they had long meetings and basically came up with a gutting amendment and knocked the amendment out by stating that only after all the processes with the president were completed, but that didn't even put them on a no-fly list. Now here's the fundamental question, that this isn't putting people in prison and detaining them. This is a question of should there be on a no-fly list. If you were in Gitmo, and understand that I don't favor closing Gitmo, I imagine neither of my colleagues here favored closing Gitmo. Just because you made a stupid campaign statement doesn't mean you have to have a stupid policy once you get in and see the truth. And there have been a number of people who've changed their opinion on that. But we've already released a number of these people, and at best the results have been mixed. Some have gotten already back involved in Al-Qaeda, and just because it's been hard to come up with the evidence, say because people get beheaded because of the type of retribution that occurs, the fearfulness of stating up front and going through even a military court where it's private, worried that it's going to get out. It was difficult to make some of the cases. It's been very mixed, the ones they did release. So the ones that are there have at least some doubt because they're already not released. Now we transfer them to the United States. The question is what's going to happen? Are they going to wait trial? Are they going to be detained? How are they going to sort this through? We don't have any plan. Secretary Napolitano said that at our hearing the day before, looking at the budget, that clearly the Homeland Security was going to have to keep track of them. If they're going to keep track of them, why in the world wouldn't they be on a no-fly list? If they're too dangerous to be released from the country without Homeland Security tracking them, why do we want them on an airplane next to us? I just see no logic to this. That we put American citizens on the no-fly list because maybe they have a cousin, they've done some phone calls, we have questions, and we're concerned about it. These people are the people they've held in Gitmo, not the ones that they've released, a couple hundred already down there. These are the people who were higher risk at the very least. Now the Chinese Uyghurs who were part of Al-Qaeda affiliated groups, China won't take them back. They've already announced they're going to release them in Northern Virginia. They can get on airplanes at Reagan Airport. What kind of a philosophy is this, that debating, we're going to see final resolution of this, we're going to work this through? This is absurd. The last thing we need is a legal counsel over there telling him, oh, well, these people should have public trials. We've been through this even in the Department of Homeland Security. That when the New York Times released the one classified report, none of us actually know precisely what was in it that caused this reaction. But what we know is terrorists were taken down around the world, networks were broken up in process before they could do that, because we heard them get up on their phones because, was it a bank account that they didn't know that we knew they were doing it? Was it a phone line that they didn't know that was tapped? When you get things in public, you expose your ability to track, and they go other routes. The idea of public trials would be catastrophic to the safety of this country. The idea that they aren't even going to be on a no-fly list is just incredible. And anybody, in my opinion, who blocks that, and if it isn't in the bill next week, that the people who kept it out of the bill should be held responsible if something happens. It isn't like you can't figure out who to blame here. We had an amendment that would have said automatically on a no-fly list if they get on the plane now without even being more than routinely checked. It would be incredible. Now I'd like to talk briefly about Johnsen. She's a fellow Hoosier. Because I do not know her, but she and her husband are well known in Indianapolis. She teaches at the Indianapolis Law School. That there is incredible pressure on our two United States senators on the vote, and we need their votes against her. It isn't whether or not she's smart. It's not whether or not they're good people, good neighbors, good people to go to church with. This is about policy and critical policy. This is about basically a person with radical views on abortion being put in a position to give that advice. And we need our two senators to understand that. We need the American people to understand that. And really, we need this president to understand this. Another thing happening just a few miles outside my district, I represent most of Elkhart County. Congressman Donnelly represents about a third. I have 2/3, and I come up around within about 5 or 7 miles of the University of Notre Dame, and about a third of my district is in South Bend. So there's been a little bit of ruckus about the president getting speaking at Notre Dame. He's 8th president in a row to speak at Notre Dame. It's not so much the controversy of speaking, but whether he should get an honorary doctorate, since his positions seem to be at odds with the fundamental teachings of the Catholic Church and of the Pope. Now, the administration claims that they aren't as hostile to the pro-life cause as we say. He said at the press conference in an astounding statement that, I wouldn't be for embryonic stem cell research if there was another alternative. And you wonder, is this just kind of cuteness? Or does he really not know that there are other alternatives that work and embryonic stem cell doesn't work? That embryonic stem cell has been going on for 10 years without even a pig being able to live, yet alone a human being, whereas the other forms of stem cells, in fact, they have cured people of diseases. Maybe, however, when you think about it, President Obama was raised in Hawaii and Indonesia and elsewhere. Then he went to Harvard. He worked as a community organizer, lived in an upscale neighborhood of Illinois in Chicago. I'm not sure whether he's really heard a lot of the debates. And to be fair, maybe we need to continue to educate him in a non-yelling way. Some of the problem we're having in South Bend right now is some of the controversy there. We need to win the middle. We lost the last election. If we're going to win the pro-life debate and save children in America, we need to make sure we can try to persuade the middle. And in this, President Obama, if he wants to claim that he really wants to reduce abortion, he needs to show that with his actions. Not just say that I favor that. He needs to support methods on adoption. He needs to encourage the women's care centers and Hope Centers. My wife, Diane, volunteers at a Hope Center. And the last thing in the world, you've been reading some of these statements, but to appoint somebody as deputy legal counsel who says that pregnancy is like slavery, that protecting life makes women no more than fetal containers, that abortion brings relief, that those who become pregnant are losers, that there is no need to reduce the number of abortions, and comparing pro-life supporters to Ku Klux Klan, among other things that you've been highlighting in these quotes. You're not neutral trying to reduce abortion. If you appoint a person in the key legal position that interprets policy, you do not have credibility then to go to the University of Notre Dame next Sunday, to go around at a press conference to tell us we're working for a middle ground. There's no middle ground there. That is the radical position of NARAL being put in a position to make legal policy for the United States of America. You have to not talk out of one side of your mouth and do the other. What we need the president to do is withdraw this nomination.
Well, and I appreciate that. I reclaim my time. I appreciate the gentleman coming to the floor and laying out this picture in this fashion as much as I do the gentlelady from Ohio doing the same. As I listen to this, and Dawn Johnson's confirmation of her nomination is in trouble. Harry Reid announced that Tuesday of this week that he had planned to bring it up for a vote. He was short a couple Democrat votes, and I think more than that. And so we need to ask, I think, Madam Speaker, that everybody weigh in on this from a conscience standpoint and understand that these statements made by Dawn Johnson are just that, an advocacy for the National Abortion Rights Action League, and which she was the chief legal counsel for them. She argued a number of cases before the court. The record is replete. It does not vary. It's consistent. It's liberal. It's activist. It is a danger to life. It's a danger to every unborn child. The statement that she made, and she's a danger to fathers. Well, this is a quote from Dawn Johnson. She said, our position, a quote, our position is that there is no father and no child, just a fetus. And any move by the courts to force a woman to have a child amounts to involuntary servitude. Mention. But put into that context, dangerous for babies, unborn babies, dangerous for mothers who are disrespected. My mother, a fetal container? That offends me. It should offend America. We're all children of mothers. They're not fetal containers. They're all mothers. They brought us into this world. They loved us. They nurtured us. There's no substitute for a mother, and I'll never get to be one, and I'm a little jealous.
Well,
Gentlelady?
I'm not a fetal container. I'm a mother, and I was very glad to have my wonderful daughter. And just 7 months ago, she had a beautiful little boy, and I think she would be appalled at being called a fetal container. She was thrilled on Sunday to be called a mother, just as I was thrilled to be called a mother and a grandmother. But more importantly, when we put people into positions of authority, while we respect that they may have a divergence of views that we might have, we certainly want people in authority that are willing to listen to all viewpoints before rendering a decision. But when you time and again, like Don Johnson, have made statement after statement after statement with inflammatory rhetoric surrounding those statements, and as she appears to have done for a better part of her adult life, especially on abortion, but on other issues as well, I don't think the American public is going to be comfortable with a person of her position of authority whispering in the president's ear or in bureaucrats' ears her opinion on matters not just on abortion, not just on Guantanamo, but on other issues as well. I think we want someone that's even-tempered, someone that's willing to look at all viewpoints, someone that's willing to see all sides and render the decision that they believe is the most appropriate for America. I don't think she has the capability of doing that when I read the kind of statements that she's made.
And reclaiming my time, and I thank the gentlelady, I'd add a piece that I want to reiterate here, that, and Madam Speaker, if America has not moved enough at this pro-abortion activism and this legal distortion that has taken place as a matter of the professional actions and the public record of Don Johnson, the President's nominee to head up the Office of Legal Counsel, we should be concerned about our national security. The national security that would say, turn the Gitmo detainees loose, bring them here into the United States, put them under U.S. courts, and then, by the way, turn them loose and nurture them with our tax dollars so they get on their feet again. All of that being a part of this concept, but also Don Johnson objecting to the surveillance of al-Qaeda communications when it was a phone call that took place from a foreign country, like, let's say, Afghanistan, and ended up in Pakistan. If Osama bin Laden was calling Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, and if that nexus came back to the United States for the link, but no one set foot in the United States, she would object to not giving them, not serving a warrant, to listen in on that traffic of the telephone signal. It would originate in Afghanistan and terminate in Pakistan. And here's what she said. She attributed that type of surveillance to an extreme and implausible commander-in-chief theory. Now, this is an implausible and an extreme theory, Madam Speaker, but the commander-in-chief is not a theory. It's constitutional. It's strictly defined in the Constitution. The commander-in-chief of our armed forces is President of the United States. And the President of the United States has nominated Don Johnson, who is a radical extremist, and her nomination is in trouble, and 62 of us wrote a letter and said, please pull the nomination. Mr. President, if I were standing before him, I would make such a plea, and I would entreat the President of the United States that the juice is not worth the squeeze. What you get out of this, there are plenty of activists that are traipsing through the White House these days. This is a lightning rod activist. Why don't you give us somebody that's not such a lightning rod, maybe somebody that's not going to be quite so radical. You're going to have to appoint somebody there to make these legal opinions. And I'd like to have it somebody that understands the Constitution, at least recognize that the President of the United States is Commander-in-Chief, that constitutional position. And in the 5 minutes we have left, I'd yield to the gentleman from Indiana.
I mean, the naivete is incredible here in the intelligence area. I've worked in the narcotics area, on the Intel Committee of Homeland Security. If you think that you're going to be able to, in case people haven't heard, the border's not completely sealed. Clearly, we don't even want to put the Gitmo detainees on a no-fly list. If you don't have intelligence, I don't know how we say stay safe. I wanted to add one other thing on the abortion issue. About 2 months ago, we just had, apparently, fetal container day. But my daughter was going through fetal container day as a mom. 2 months ago, our granddaughter, Reagan Rebecca, was born. My daughter, Brooke, and her husband, Jeff, who apparently in Don Johnson's mind wasn't relevant, and he didn't. I don't know when he became a father. If he wasn't a father at the beginning, I don't know when Reagan Rebecca became a human being, because my daughter was having problems, and they decided they had to bring Reagan out early, and it wouldn't have been that many years ago that she wouldn't have survived. She came out somewhat over 4 pounds, just under 5 pounds. She yelled just as loud as if she was heavier, but she came out very small. But she survived. She was able to go home. She had a high enough APGAR score. But at one point, my daughter, well, true of my wife Diane too, but at one point my daughter was a fetal container, and Reagan Rebecca was a fetus, and then she came out a month early where she wouldn't have even been before allowed or been able to survive, and now she's a human being suddenly, and my daughter's a mom. It doesn't make any sense here. We cannot have somebody with these radical views in this position of power. If she wants to continue at IU Law School, wants to continue with NARAL, fine, but we do not need her. And Mr. President, she needs to be withdrawn. We need to have a reasonable alternative that we can try to work with. We know we lost the election, but we do not need radicals in this position that would destroy human life, whether it be because of lack of intelligence, in terrorism, or in abortion. I thank the gentleman.
Reclaiming my time, I thank the gentleman and the gentlelady. It sparks my memory as I listen to the gentleman from Indiana speak. A mother is not transformed from a fetal container into a mother by the birth. A mother is a mother at conception from that point on. And we use that language consistently. But another piece that comes to mind when I think about the President of the United States and this subject matter, and that is that I look back on the Saddleback Church, the debate that took place there, very well handled by Reverend Rick Warren, who offered the prayer just a few feet behind me here, out on the west portico of the Capitol building at the inauguration of the President of the United States. But there they sat with John McCain and President Obama, and he asked the question, when did life begin? When does life begin of then Senator Obama? Senator Obama's answer was, that's above my pay scale. When his life began, is above his own pay scale. Now, there's significant evidence that President Obama got a raise since August of last year, because he decided right away in January that it wasn't his pay scale. He decided that he would rescind the Mexico City policy, which that prohibited our taxpayer dollars from funding abortions in foreign lands. By executive order, wiped that out, that very conscience decision that was being debated on the floor of this House over and over again and defended by the pro-life effort in this Congress and across the United States. And he also, by executive order, decided that he wants to fund with federal tax dollars the ending of human life in the form of experimenting on embryos. Little frozen embryos, little snowflake babies, some of whom I've held in my arms that were frozen for 9 years. Loving, giggling, laughing little children wiped out by executive order that now seems to have found its legs and decided life must not begin or it must not be sacred yet if it's in the earliest stages when it can't scream for its own mercy. So the Mexico City policy wiped out the embryonic stem cell prohibition of federal dollars investigating and experimenting on them has already been moved, and now we see the appointment of Don Johnsen, and we have a president that's going to be soon speaking at South Bend, Indiana, at Notre Dame University, directly in conflict with the teachings of the church. It is a hard thing for us Catholics to watch. It's a hard thing for the pro-life people in this country to watch. But I've seen hundreds of thousands of Americans come to this city to stand up for innocent unborn human life. They will come to this city in greater numbers if Don Johnsen is confirmed. And I think the President will keep that in mind, and I pray that he will pull her nomination, Madam Speaker. And with that, I would thank you for your indulgence, and I would yield back the balance of my time.